Have you ever been at a family gathering and realized that you could literally get up and leave the room, and it would take 10, maybe 20 minutes before anyone even noticed you were gone? Or maybe you've noticed that in your adult life, you have this chameleon ability to slip into any social situation, blend into the background, and observe everything without ever being the center of attention. Society calls this being shy or introverted, but for those of us who grew up as the invisible child, we know the truth. You weren't born quiet. You were trained to be quiet. You were the child who learned that the safest place to be was out of the way, the middle child who was overlooked, or the one who had to raise themselves, because the adults were too busy with their own chaos. But here's the secret the world doesn't want you to know. That invisibility didn't just make you a loner. It turned you into a psychological architect. It gifted you with a level of survival intelligence that most people will never possess. Today, we are going to decode the 7 rare emotional gifts you developed while the world was looking the other way. Welcome back to Mind Decode. If you're new here, we don't do surface-level motivation. We break down the real, often hidden psychology behind the behaviors that make you feel like an outsider. If you've spent your life feeling like a black sheep, or someone who sees too much and says too little, you are exactly where you belong. Today's deep dive is for the ones who grew up too fast, the children who learned to read the room before they could even read a book. We're going to explore how your childhood experience of being unseen actually wired your brain for a rare kind of relational intelligence. We're moving fast today because your time is valuable, so let's jump straight into the first rare gift your younger self gave to the adult you are today. The first gift is what we call hyper-observant intuition. Most people walk into a room and see a party, or a meeting, or a dinner. But when you walk into a room, you see a map of emotional energy. Because you are the invisible child, you spend years sitting on the sidelines watching. You weren't participating, you were gathering data. You learned to recognize the subtle shift in a parent's voice before they got angry. You noticed the micro-expressions of a sibling who was lying. You became an expert at reading body language because for you, knowing the vibe of the room was a survival strategy. Now, as an adult, this is manifested as a rare trait, where you can sense when someone doesn't like you, even when they're being perfectly nice. You can tell when a coworker is faking confidence, or when a friend is secretly hurting. This isn't paranoia, it's a high-level cognitive advantage. You possess the ability to see the hidden intentions behind people's actions, which makes you almost impossible to manipulate. You see the truth before people even have the chance to speak it. The second gift is the power of strategic silence. In a world that is obsessed with being heard, you've realized that the person who talks the most usually knows the least. Society often views the quietest person in the room as someone who lacks confidence, but psychology says you should actually fear the quiet person. Why? Because while everyone else is busy performing and trying to be noticed, you are busy analyzing. Your silence isn't a lack of ideas, it's a filter. You've learned that you don't need to explain yourself to everyone you meet. This rare autonomy allows you to stay calm in arguments where others are losing their minds. You've developed the ability to stay composed because your younger self learned that reacting only brought unwanted attention. Today, that translates into a high-value mindset, where you choose your words with surgical precision. When you finally do speak, people listen, because they know you aren't just making noise, you're delivering insight. Your silence is your shield, and it's one of the rarest kinds of strength you possess. Number 3 is a gift that often feels like a burden, but it's actually your greatest asset: radical self-reliance. If you were the child who had to raise themselves, you learned very early on that if you wanted something done, or if you simply wanted to survive, you had to do it yourself. You didn't have the luxury of asking for help, because there was no one there to catch you if you fell. Now, as an adult, you have developed hyper-independent habits. You are the person who can sit alone, with no phone, no noise, and no distractions, and still feel completely in control of your world. While your peers are constantly seeking validation or needing a crowd to feel successful, you are building your own path. This makes you society's biggest threat because you cannot be threatened with exclusion. You don't need the group's permission to exist because you've been your own anchor since you were 6 years old. You are the architect of your own life, and that independence is a rare gift that allows you to thrive in a portfolio career or any non-traditional path you choose. The fourth gift is high-resolution emotional intelligence. Because you were often ignored or neglected as a child, you became deeply attuned to the internal world of emotions. You didn't have someone else to mirror your feelings, so you had to learn how to comfort yourself. This silent struggle forced you to become your own therapist, your own best friend, and your own protector. Today, this means you have a rare mindset for empathy. You don't just feel for people, you understand the root of their pain, because you've been in the trenches of loneliness yourself. This is why you are likely the person everyone vents to, the unseen anchor for your friends and family. You have the ability to hold space for others' catastrophes at 3 a.m. without being overwhelmed. However, this gift comes with a warning. You must be careful not to let your dark side of kindness lead to you being too available for those who don't prioritize you. Your EQ is a superpower, but it requires a forgiveness filter to ensure you aren't wasting it on people who only want to drain you. Number 5 is a gift that makes you incredibly resilient, immunity to the sunk cost of people. When you grow up as the invisible child, you quickly learn that people can be temporary. You've had to survive alone before, so the idea of cutting someone off or walking away silently doesn't terrify you the way it does others. You have a rare trait where you can lose interest in people the moment they prove they aren't safe or trustworthy. Society might call this being cold or having commitment issues, but in reality, it's boundary architecture. You refuse to stay in a graveyard of unfinished projects or toxic friendships just because of how much time you've already invested. You possess the high mindset to forgive for your own peace, but never forget the data of how someone treated you. This gift of selective excellence ensures that your inner circle stays small, high quality, and completely free of social filler. The sixth gift is intellectual depth. When you aren't the center of attention, you have a lot of time to think. The visible child often retreats into a world of books, hobbies, and deep thinking to escape the reality of being ignored. You likely have a graveyard of unfinished projects or too many interests, because your brain is constantly seeking the stimulation you didn't get from your social environment. This is actually your polymath advantage. While others are focusing on being masters of one, you are building an M-shaped future for yourself. You have a unique portfolio of skills because you spend your childhood decoding the world from the outside in. You are a deep thinker who can connect dots that others don't even see. Your overthinking isn't a flaw, it's a sign of a high IQ that is constantly rewiring itself for happiness and success in a world that is becoming increasingly complex. Finally, the seventh and most powerful gift is the rarest kind of strength. If you have gone through too much in childhood, if you were the one who endured life silently, while everyone else complained about small problems, you have developed a level of resilience that is truly rare. You don't panic when things go wrong at 3 a.m. because you've been handling catastrophes by yourself for years. You possess a survival intelligence that makes you society's biggest threat because you are unbreakable. You have the ability to comfort yourself when the world gets loud. You've survived the lifelong effect of not being loved, and yet, here you are, still seeking to understand yourself and grow. This resilience is the ultimate gift you should never let anyone take from you. You are behind in life. You are just operating on a level of depth that most people won't reach until they are 40. Your invisibility was just a training ground for your eventual invincibility. So, if you spent your childhood feeling like a ghost in your own home, I want you to look in the mirror today and see a survivor. You are quiet because you have nothing to say. You're quiet because you see everything. You aren't lonely because you can't make friends. You're selective because you know your worth. Your invisible child past didn't take your voice, it gave you a vision that the world desperately needs. If this video felt like a direct mind decode of your life, let me know in the comments. Which of these 7 gifts hit you the hardest? Are you the hyper-observant one or the radically self-reliant one? I read every single comment because this community is for the black sheep, the invisible children, and the ones who are finally ready to be seen. If you want to keep exploring the hidden psychology behind your weird habits, like why you replay the same song, or why you hate eye contact, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the circle. We are moving to these 20-minute deep dives because your identity is too complex for a shortcut. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.